Harry Hutchinson's joining us because the inflation report came in. And look, is inflation up a little bit? Yeah, it's up a little bit, but it's actually up less than anticipated. So maybe we actually have a report saying that some of these moves, as people have pushed and said, you voted for this. You voted for this. Look, egg price is still high. Look, all this. I think most of us understood this was not going to be an overnight fix. That is not how the economy works. Just like you can't really destroy an economy overnight, I don't think you can also build back an economy overnight. Now, did President Trump say, day one, maybe, this campaign promises, sometimes that gets a little hyperbolic. But we are talking about only 60 plus days into an administration here. And inflation, which was supposed to be coming in at around 3.5%, 3.2% is what people thought. It actually came in at 2.8% in the month of February, lower than expected. So yes, is that a minor win? It is a minor win, but it shows the trajectory that maybe we are headed on the right path, and we've seen the first dip in inflation for the first time in quite some time, Harry.
I think that's precisely correct. So core inflation, for instance, slowed to the lowest reading since April of 2021. If you look at shelter costs, for instance, that was the smallest increase since December 2021. And thirdly, inflation-adjusted wage increases rose. So in real terms, during the first full month of the Trump administration, the economy is actually doing better than expected. So I think that is the core takeaway from today's news.
Well, and Professor Hutchison, also, when you look at 2.8%, a reminder for everyone that the way our economy is built, in the pros and cons, and this is a much longer discussion you and I could have, but when there's central banking and a Federal Reserve and fractional reserve systems and all the things that come along with that, the Federal Reserve is looking for inflation. We don't have an economy based on deflationary periods. They have a target rate of 2%. That's what they want inflation to be at the central bank, at the Federal Reserve. So when you see this 2.8% annual inflation rate, that's very close to what the central bankers would be wanting. It's not out of the norm. But I think it's also important to remind people that getting inflation back in line doesn't mean necessarily, it can across some sectors, that prices come down, because inflation is an ever-growing snowball effect. And when you have prices baked in, a lot of times it's very difficult, based off our economy, to get things to return back where they were to counteract those periods of extreme high inflation that we saw under the Biden presidency when we were 9-10% year over year.
I think that is precisely correct. And so I think you are correct to point out that the inflation rate is coming down. That is important for several reasons, not the least of which is the fact that that may lead to a reduction in interest rates. As interest rates come down, housing costs come down, and people can afford to purchase another house or a new house, perhaps for the first time in their working lives. So I think overall, this is relatively good news, and it's particularly good news against a backdrop of tariff increases or proposed tariff increases, and some of the gloom and doom that is coming from CNN, the Associated Press, MSNBC, and other entities who have finally discovered something called inflation.
And with the tariff situation, look, I mean, I was in an interview with Rand Paul yesterday. He's concerned about it. There are conservatives, especially the more libertarian conservatives, who have concerns with the tariffs. But if you have the tariffs going in and then sort of inflation and you're able to balance that off, then maybe it will prove the point.
I think that's true. And also tariffs will incentivize economic production to move to the United States. And so one of the things that we should keep in mind is, for instance, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, has imposed, he's pulled it off, he's pulled it back, but he imposed a surcharge on electricity sales to Michigan, New York, and Minnesota in retaliation to the tariffs that Donald Trump imposed on steel and aluminum. Canada is the largest exporter to the United States of steel and aluminum. And so what President Trump is doing is incentivizing manufacturers to move to the United States.
Yeah, move to the United States. Go ahead.
I would also say that President Trump is gifted by virtue of the fact that he is dealing with someone like Doug Ford, who is not considered the brightest candle in Canada.
Yeah, also, it's another negotiation tactic, and we know that from President Trump. We know that sometimes you got to ask for something crazy, do something kind of crazy, to then work yourself back to an actual deal. We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Seculo program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.